Is Chad a democracy or a dynasty? The people of the country cast their ballots on May 6th, the first presidential election since a wave of coups hit Africa's Sahel region. The vote comes 3 years after Chad's current military leader came to office. Mahamat Deby seized power in 2021 after rebels killed his long-ruling father, and the son has been head of the military junta since then. When the four-star general took the helm, he promised to hand back power to a civilian government within 18 months. But he did not, triggering violent protests when he extended his interim presidency in 2022. Now, last year, Chad held a referendum on a new constitution, which the junta said would be a key step towards civilian rule and democracy. The opposition says it paved the way for Déby to cement his grip on power. Much like the current election, critics argue Déby's main rival, Yaya Dillo, was shot dead in an army assault on his party's headquarters in February. Human Rights Watch says he was killed point blank with a single bullet to the head. Déby's main surviving rival is Succès Masra, an organizer of the 2022 protest who had fled to exile in DRC. But in January, in a surprise twist, Déby granted him an amnesty and appointed him prime minister. His party says his supporters have been intimidated and his home put under surveillance. But critics of Déby say Masra is just a stooge and the election just a show, guaranteeing the heir to the throne remains in power and leaving little real choice for Chadian voters. For more on this, let's bring in Oluwole Ojewale. He's a political analyst and an expert on the Sahel region with the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar. Hello and welcome to the program. So, Chad has held elections, but the interim president is the son of the old president. His main rival was gunned down, and he invited his other rival to take part. Is this really democracy?
Thank you so much for having me. This is far from what we can consider as an inclusive and transparent democracy. I think what we are having in Chad now is a patched democratic process, particularly the electoral election that has held, in which the winner is also the purported winner, as we can imagine, is also the umpire of the entire electoral process. And what will have become probably a competitive election, that hope was dashed the way that the main opposition leader, Diallo, was removed or killed in the past few weeks. So I think it's just the incumbent army general contesting against himself, as he has also put himself on the ballot.
And how big of a problem is that?
This is a big problem for Chad in terms of internal democracy, in the sense that the people, maybe for the quest for peace, because, there's a way in which people just want peace and they don't, maybe the horror of war in the past and what is happening in the region now, they can just say, okay, let us just hold the election, like what they used to describe as graveyard peace. So I think that is the number one thing, because if it turned out to be winner takes all, then in the real sense of it, we can't say election has taken place. But this has a bigger regional implication since since the military struck in Mali in 2020. In the last 3 years, a coup bet has been created that stretched from Mali to Sudan. But for the sake of this analysis, let us just limit ourselves to the Central Sahel. So democratic transition will take place in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in Niger at some point. We don't know how quick or how long that is going to be. But I can say with authoritative finality, if we can predict what is going to happen, I think what is going on in Chad now is going to be the playbook that will be deployed in those countries when they reach the milestone for democratic transition. And what do I mean by this? Opposition will be negligible, or maybe their voice will actually be taken out of the entire dynamics in terms of maybe canvassing for vote, participating in the election. You can also see decrease that will make sure that some people are disqualified. But what is much more germane is that we are going to see a situation in which the transition process is going to grant amnesty to the military junta in such a way that they also I won't use the word put, they will impose themselves on the ballot and at the same time determine how they are going to win the election. So Chad is leading the charge in that regard.
I mean, from what you're saying and how you're describing it, this sort of spells doom for the region. As you say, sort of a playbook where you can just take power, hold elections, and remain in power. That's not the way, you know, we expect it to go, is it?
It is, for the want of the right word to use, what is going on now is completely primitive, just to say it mildly. In the sense that some people, because they have access to the gun, remove democratically elected leaders and impose themselves, and then now stage a democratic transition in which, you know, that by itself is illegal in the first place, because they are coming into power, it's unconstitutional. And then you now develop and supervise a constitution, a referendum in which you put yourself on the ballot and don't give other people. I mean, I find it difficult to really rationalize this because it is incongruent with 21st century ethos, democratic order, state building, policies of negotiation and inclusion. Some people, which I consider to be trade unionists, because army is just like a trade unionist, like you have teachers, you have doctors and all these things. But because they have access to the gun, they seize power. And then they midwife a part democratic process. That is what is going on. What is going to happen or what is happening in Chad is not democracy. And we have to say it, call a spade a spade.
Right. Oluwole Ojewale from the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.